So hello everybody, many thanks for all the comments for my last video where I looked into stem separation tools which run totally offline, and two main things I wanted to address and which we will look into today are the following. So one is many people commented that there should have been more examples, which is a totally valid comment. But nevertheless, as we will see today, the example I chose was a very good one because it really showed where the issues are with the currently available stem separation tools. But nevertheless, I picked some other examples for you today, which we will have a look at in a second. And the question was, are there also tools for Linux? Because all the tools I showed were only available on Windows and Mac, and I wasn't aware of one. But one other person commented that there is one tool called Ocenaudio or Ocenaudio. I'm not sure how they pronounce themselves. I will go with Ocenaudio, and it's a free tool. How great is that? And it's not only available for Linux, it's available for many platforms. So it's Microsoft, but also in older versions for macOS, which is also pretty rare, and many different distributions ready for Linux. And it's actually an audio editor, but also provides now the option to do stem separations. And how do you do that? So let's have a look at that first, how this tool works. So if you fire it up, as with the other tools, you drag and drop in your audio files you'd like to convert. And I first tried the example from last time. So we get a common baseline for all the tools to start with, and you first need to go to the settings and download the model. So all these tools use an AI model, and you need to download that, and that's pretty big. It's also pretty big with the other tools, but they install it straight away. But here you have the option to download it, which I already did, and you need to start it if you want to use it. There's also another one which I did not try for speech enhancement, so it might be worth a look as well. But if you downloaded the model, you go to Effects, into the Effects menu, and at the bottom you find Oken AI, and there you can select to do music source separation. And if you click on that, it does its job, and as it turns out, a pretty fast job. So it takes just about 4 to 5 minutes for that. So it's in a fastest in the tools we checked so far. And as we will listen to in a second, it's a pretty surprising result. But first, let's wait for the end of the tool, and there you will get the separated tracks. Also, a little bit drawback with some other tools is that you need to save them individually to your hard disk, but nevertheless, this really worked fine. So we will have a listen to the results in a second, but before we do that, there was another command. And the command was about SpectralLayers, that in SpectralLayers you can select to use your graphics card if your graphics card is able to support AI applications. And it turns out mine is only partially available to do that, because it can do AI, but it doesn't have enough RAM to do so. So it requires 6 GB. Mine has only 4, as you see here in a hardware specs. But nevertheless, even without the necessary memory, it was a bit faster. So if you remember, we had about 21 minutes, which is a really long time for SpectralLayers to run. And with that option enabled, or with the change, it took about 17.5 minutes. So still a long time. I would be interested to hear from users who have a compatible graphics card, how much of a speed up it is. So, but finally, let's have some listens here, and let's start with the previous song example. And here we have now also the separated stems with Ocenaudio. And just as a reminder from last time, we had as a little winner, at least my favorite was SpectralLayers, and their drums sounded like this. These were one of the ones which could separate the cymbals also quite nicely. And let's compare that here to the Ocenaudio. A bit of flanging in there, but also nice cymbals. And let's go with the bass. Bass were also quite difficult last time, and we had basically the option between too much keyboard synthi sounds in it and not enough in it. So especially here with SpectralLayers, it was a bit difficult because it had the cleaner space, but it was a bit thin. And this is what we get here with Ocenaudio. And here we have now the rest. So nice separation of the sequencer in comparison to SpectralLayers. So SpectralLayers clearly sounds fuller and richer. And let's finally have a look at the vocals. What we see here, it also grabbed this mistake here in the beginning, as we had with several others. Also with SpectralLayers, but in different parts, interestingly. So this is where it mistake the vocals for this chorus pad. But nevertheless, the vocals also sound really nice. So I think totally usable. Let's again do the thing without the vocals, just as a vocal remover. Sounds perfectly fine, and hey, this is a free tool. Nevertheless, I think it sounds a bit rougher than the other ones, but it's really minor detail. But so much for the last setup. And where would I put this? So let's go back to our chart table, and I think I would rate this somewhere around Cubase, maybe even better than Cubase, I think. So let's maybe say Cubase with 5, and we have 6, and we have 7, and this would be number 4 then. By the way, I also checked, I had this issue with Cubase, so the time is really correct. It's lightning fast, Cubase. The quality is not that good, but nevertheless, for many applications, it does the job. And it must have been user error that it was shorter, so I ran this again, and it came out totally fine also with the length. But now let's hear 2 other songs. Since I cannot song from a chart due to copyright issues, I had again 2 more songs of my bands and projects. So this is this time from my band Aerolin, where we play some kind of rock, melodic rock, metal sometimes. It's a wild mixture with lots of electronics as well. And I picked 2 songs which I think show many different aspects. So one is an acoustic song, which we did on an acoustic album, which has classically only percussion, bass, acoustic guitar, and a piano and vocals. And the other one is a power ballad with heavy guitars and all this stuff. But we will have a listen for that. So let's start with the acoustic song. And something like this in the beginning. And these are the kind of songs which I think these tools should be have an easier job with them. That's why I did not pick such an example last time. Let's give that a listen. This is Cubase, the percussion. Again, as a spoiler, everything sounds pretty good. The results we get in that example. What to listen for is how the reverb is on a track or not. So here we don't really have reverb on there. With some exceptions, sometimes it gets through. Here's a bass. Sounds a bit flangy. Then the rest, other. Depending on what you're after, my impression is here with also with some other tools that the rest, so the guitar and the keyboard, are a bit muddled and not that usable if you want to, well, yeah, whatever you want to do with that. This might be an issue. But nevertheless, vocals.
Change, I change into someone else.
So vocals totally fine. Let's move on to Logic. So here you can hear that the reverb, which is on the cajon, is totally recovered in comparison to Cubase, also bass. Bass sounds great. Guitar. Okay, and here we have the benefit now of Logic and also SpectralLayers, which we'll see later, which can address other types of instruments. So they also support piano and guitar on explicit track, which we don't have on Cubase, for example. We only have other. So this is a perfect example for such a tool like Logic. And we have here the guitar again. Which I think also sounds perfect. Let's listen to the piano. Let's go with an intro solo. Really nice, so really good result with Logic. Vocals.
I'm exchanging my identity. Change, and I change, I change.
Also perfectly keeps the reverb, but in some applications you might not want to have that, but you could still use another tool to remove reverb as well. So let's move on to Maschine. Yeah, very unnatural sound of the cajon. Here you also hear that the reverb sometimes comes through and sometimes not. Bass. Bass is also okay, but not as good here as with Logic. Let's compare it. And again, the rest. This is a pretty good result for the kind of tools which only have one additional track. So the relation of guitar and piano is still kept on these tracks, which I missed somehow in some other tools. And vocals.
Change, I change, running for my life.
Yeah, you get some artifacts with that, but still pretty good job. MPC drums. Yeah, this is clearly the worst result of all. You get some artifacts. This reverb is shining sometimes through, so hitting in and then not. So this is not that usable. Bass. Also the worst bass result of all. Also, other is problematic, so sometimes the piano or sometimes the guitar drowns. And vocals.
I am strong and
Sorry. Vocals.
without fear, whatever danger might appear. My quest has started, now I'm running.
So also problematic, you hear sometimes the guitar coming through. Yeah. So already I can tell you now, MPC is on the last position. So our new kid on the block, let's hear Ocenaudio drums or percussion. Very good job. Interesting to notice here, it removed the reverb completely, which is interesting if you want to do a complete remix and don't want to have the reverb. And I think it did that on all the tracks. So let's hear the bass. Also sounds good. The rest. Also nice.
And I
Vocals.
change, I change into someone else.
I think, again, for free tool, excellent job, very, very usable. And let's move on to RX11 drums. Did also remove the reverb. So there are some artifacts, and we also have here again this issue that there is sometimes reverb and sometimes not. Bass. Sounds very nice, really natural bass. And other. Here again, the acoustic guitar is a bit muddy and a bit drowned behind the piano. And finally, vocals.
Change, change, I change into someone else.
Okay, also nice. So, last but not least, SpectralLayers, drums. With Logic, the only one who really kept nicely the reverb bass. Also very nice with a little bit of artifacts. So again, like Logic, we have here more tracks now. We have a separate guitar and a separate piano track. Sounds great. Compare it to Logic. Sorry, here's the guitar. Again. Okay, so SpectralLayers kept nice the stereo effect and the piano. Well, let's start in the beginning where the solo is. Hear a little bit of guitar behind it. How is that compared to Logic? So Logic is a bit cleaner. But also again here on the piano, it's a little bit richer and more stereo, the piano. And finally the vocals.
And I change, 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 I change into someone else. Change, 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 and
Again, compare this to Logic.
I change, change, change.
Not much difference.
Change, I change.
Pretty similar. So this is tougher to decide on an order. So please tell me again down in the comments, what do you think? I think somehow that number one is again maybe SpectralLayers, or I'm torn between Logic. So they did both a very good job, but I prefer the stereo and the richness in SpectralLayers. But it's very, very close, and both is very good results. So there's logic here. Then it gets a bit more difficult. Another clear thing is that MPC is really, really bad. And I think maybe we would also need to change that. So this is really the worst result. And then again, maybe Maschine, which did a much better job this time. And then it's among RX, Cubase, and Ocenaudio. I think it's Ocenaudio sounds a bit rougher, but it's separated really nicely. So so 3, 4, or maybe also could be the other way around, and then Steinberg. So a bit different this time. And yeah, so let's go to the next example, which is now a power ballad, but also with some electronic elements. So it starts out also with a drum loop. So we have this drum loop running in the background. And the bass playing, and then the guitar and vocals get in. But then the drums kick in later on. And the distorted guitar, so this might be a challenge to separate this correctly. And then the end we will also get lots of strings and big orchestration. So let's see how that worked out. Again, Cubase, the drums. Yeah, as with the example from last time, pretty muddy, and it misses the high end bass. Bass with some flanging. Yeah, other is not that usable.
Thank you for release, and I hope you let me free. Didn't know that I should listen.
Still some artifacts in the background from the keyboards. And let's check the drum loop in the beginning. Yeah, okay, it's partially there. So Cubase is definitely not in a top list. So Logic, drums, or let's start with that loop. It extracted this loop perfectly, I would say. Let's listen to the end. Really a nice drum sound, but a little bit drowned in reverb somehow. Bass. Nice clean bass. Guitar. Also nice. Listen also to the distorted one. Picked up both the solo and the rhythm guitar. And what is the rest? Picked up nicely the synthesizer sounds. And the intro. Yeah, very good job here. Logic can shine again with a separate guitar track, which we don't have any others except SpectralLayers. And vocals.
Didn't see the lies. Today is the darkest day I've ever known.
Got also all the delay right. This is really nice. So Maschine drums. So let's start here. Let's hear the loop. Okay-ish job, better than Cubase, but worse than Logic. Yeah, pretty broken and unusable bass. Bass sounds good. Other. Sounds also good. Vocals.
Someday, since you're gone, I am lost.
Also kept the delay, but not as perfect as Logic. MPC drums. Also, let's hear the loop first. Yeah, also not really usable. Yeah, flanging, lots of artifacts, bass. Also flanging, other. Okay, vocals.
Didn't know that I should listen. Didn't know that I have.
Okay, picked up lots of keyboard pads. So let's move on to Ocenaudio. First the loop. Also very good job. Not as good as Logic, but pretty usable. So the real drums sound quite okay, but as I feel it's was a little bit rough, but yeah, it's okay. Bass. Sounds very good. All the rest. Also good. Vocals.
Now I back you for release, and I hope you let me free. I didn't know that I should listen. Didn't.
Picked a little bit keyboards, but it's okay. So again, pretty good, usable and good results for a free tool. Ocenaudio, thumbs up. So RX11 drums, let's see the loop. Not that good. Yeah, quite okay, but also with some artifacts and issues. Bass. Bass sounds good. All the rest. Sounds also good. And finally the vocals.
Used to be. Now I back you for release, and I hope you let me free.
Here the delay is not that nice as in Logic, and it also picked up a bit of synth pads. And let's move on, last but not least, SpectralLayers, drums, the loop. Also quite nice, but I think Apple is a little bit better. Let's hear it again. Let's compare it with... Yeah, Logic kept it nearly perfectly. Then acoustic drums. They are really nice. Let's also compare them to Logic. That's a tough one. Yeah, I think Logic did a better job on that one. Guitar. Also in comparison to Logic. again, we have here this the richness and the stereo. So for the guitar, I prefer SpectralLayers. So again, also with SpectralLayers, we have this additional track here available, the guitar track, which is great. And then the rest, which are the synths. They don't sound that nice. Compare it here with Logic. Has less artifacts and is not this heavy flanging. And finally, vocals.
Please, and I hope you let me free. I didn't know that I should
Also got
listen.
very nicely the
Didn't
delay
know
effect.
that I have failed.
Let's again compare that to Logic.
And I hope you let me free. I didn't know that I should listen. Didn't know that I have failed.
Yeah, both very nice. So this is really, again, a tough choice. Again, tell me, what do you think? Let's go here with the third song. And I think this time I would prefer Logic. Again, it's a close one, but most of the tracks I like more in Logic, except the guitar track, which I think sounds nicer in SpectralLayers. So it's very close. So, but then again, it gets difficult, but again, but again, the easy one is MPC is again the worst. And then again, I think still Maschine, which did a much better job on that song. And then it gets a bit tricky. I think RX11 did a pretty bad job on that one. And I think maybe even Cubase was better. Difficult. But I really liked Ocenaudio, so I would give this number 3. Let's do that. Song 3. So, and then we have here... Yeah, I'm not sure which one was. Maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe like this. But this can be heavily discussed. But yeah, I think again this showed more aspects of these tools. And again, SpectralLayers is still a very good choice, and they have a really head-to-head result with Logic. And I'm really surprised that RX11, which was also commented on the last video, is not that good actually. And I can say, yeah, you were right. It depends really a bit on the material, but I think you cannot go wrong with SpectralLayers or with Logic if you use these, especially as they can also separate piano and guitar sounds on separate tracks, which none of the other tools so far can do. And I'm really surprised how good this tool Ocenaudio is, and it also runs on Linux and it's free. So absolutely give this a shot. And yeah, what do you think? Tell me again down in the comments, and until next time, make some funky music.